Welcome to Detroit Sports Jersey, Saturdays at 3 p.m. Eastern, broadcasting live from Detroit and stretching to the heart of Central Texas, here on WCHB 1200 and 99.9 FM with co-host Longhorn. Straight sports talk, no professionals here. Live call-in number 313-568-1200. And now, here's your host that never gets it right but is never wrong, Will Sims.
All right, Welcome to Detroit Sports Jersey. I'm your host, Will. Longhorn will join us momentarily, but today we're going to switch the gears. We have Mrs. Gail Jackson, president of the DeSean Jackson Foundation. She's the president and advocate for pancreatic cancer and awareness. She's going to be calling in here shortly to discuss this terrible disease that we have going on out here, when you can get checked, how to get checked, what effects it has on you. So like I said, she'll be calling in here shortly to discuss, because in the past 5 years, more than 210,000 people have been diagnosed with this disease. 92% of those individuals have passed away during the first year, while only 5% of those living past the first year live to the fifth year of this disease. So she's going to be calling in, giving us more information about that. Once again, welcome to Detroit Sports Jersey. Live call-in number 313-568-1200. If you have any questions for Mrs. Gail Jackson. And also, when the Longhorn join us later on, we're going to be talking about the Pistons. You got the Heisman Trophy winner's going to be announced tonight. Lions got a big game, in my opinion, against Minnesota Vikings. What I say, soda? That's all right. We ain't no professionals here. That's the voice in the background giving me some. She think because she was a teacher, she's all that. But anyway, we got a lot on the table today. So like I said, I'm just waiting for Mrs. Gail Jackson to call in. And if you're a big football fan, you would know her son. He plays for the Washington Redskins, DeSean Jackson. So if you're a big football fan, you're very familiar with him. Used to play for Philly. Now he's in Washington doing his thing up there. So they got a foundation going on to try to, give back and help out the community and bring awareness of this terrible disease that affects many of us. Actually, it affects like 116 people daily, which turns out to be 42,400 people every year that gets this disease, which, like I said, a lot of us, we don't like to go get checked, especially men. I'm in that group too, but I done got better with that. But, we hate going to the doctor. We know it, you know it, and I know it. So hopefully, she can, give us some input on that. Let us know exactly, how to take care of ourselves in the future. And what I want to do right now is go to a quick break, and we'll be back after a word from our sponsor.
Listen up, parents and all high school seniors. Detroit Sports Jersey is giving away a $300 scholarship. And all you have to do is write an essay explaining why you should win. Send your 1,000-word essay to info@DetroitSportsJersey.com. Essays will be accepted from October 1st, 2014 through April 1st, 2015. Apply for the Detroit Sports Jersey Scholarship today. Winners will be announced Saturday, April 18th, 2015. Good luck, high school seniors. Listen.
Detroit Sports Jersey is sponsored by CustomSantaHats.com. CustomSantaHats.com on sale now. $5 Santa hats embroidered with your name, out for delivery the same day. Enter coupon code DSJ, that's for Detroit Sports Jersey, DSJ, at CustomSantaHats.com and get an extra 20% off orders of 5 hats or more. That's CustomSantaHats.com.
All right, welcome back to Detroit Sports Jersey. Once again, I'm your host, Will. Let me say congratulations to the Detroit Pistons for pulling out a victory last night. Thank God they did not lose their 14th game in a row. So congratulations to them boys. Hopefully they can get a little taste of victory here and keep the ball rolling out there. So once again, congratulations to the Detroit Pistons for winning the game against the Phoenix Suns last night. So once again, like I said, we have Miss Gail Jackson up here shortly. And as a matter of fact, we have Miss Gail Jackson on the air live right now. Welcome to Detroit Sports Jersey.
Thank you. Happy holiday to you.
Oh, thank you. It's our pleasure to have you to call in to discuss you guys' foundation and this terrible disease. I already done informed the audience exactly what we're going to be talking about. And I would like for you to give us some history on the background of your foundation.
All right, I'd be happy to talk about it. The name of our foundation, of course, is the DeSean Jackson Foundation, and under one of the things that we do under that particular umbrella is that we are focusing on pancreatic cancer. And the reason for that is, unfortunately, in May of 2009, DeSean's father, Bill Jackson, Mr. Jackson, he was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And at that particular time, we kind of heard about pancreatic cancer, but not really understanding the magnitude of what pancreatic cancer really is. And for those who don't know, I mean, we all know that any kind of cancer is no good, but pancreatic cancer, it attacks your pancreas and it shuts it down. There is a tumor that generally blocks the pancreas it's a small organ, and it's kind of located and tucked away at the base of your stomach. It's a little organ that's kind of stashed away, and because that space is so narrow, I believe your colon is not far from there. Your stomach is there. Your bowel gland is there. So it kind of gets hidden. And with pancreatic cancer, unfortunately, which is one of the issues that we want to address, is that it doesn't, normally when you have pancreatic cancer, it's often referred to as the silent, kind of like a silent killer, because you really do not know that you have it until the latter stages. And by that I mean there's no real signs, there's no real symptoms. In Bill's particular case, he just was complaining of his stomach. He was like, man, my stomach. He wasn't in pain at that particular time.
Okay.
And he just said that it gave him the impression that he had like indigestion.
Okay.
Indigestion. And anything that he would try to eat, he couldn't really taste it. It just didn't settle well in his stomach, but he still continued to do everything as a normal person would do it. And so what kept happening was, I guess, in these attempts to eat and not knowing at that particular time, the tumor blocked anything from going through, so it didn't pass through your system. So everything was just, I guess it was just like right there inside his stomach, and it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. Well, it got to the point where he developed jaundice, which his eyes were, kind of yellow, and then you notice this real sudden weight loss, and he just kept slowing down. But at that particular time, he was in his 60s.
Okay.
And what they had done with Bill, and this happens so many times, so we have to kind of be careful, is that, and I'm no doctor, this is just what I said after the fact. This was all in hindsight.
Exactly.
But let's say 5 years before he passed away, they diagnosed him with diabetes. Now, diabetes runs in the family, so that's what I'm saying. Not that unusual. My father passed away from diabetes, and he was around the same age at the same time. And I can remember he slowed down, of course. I mean, but you're getting older, so there aren't blatant signs that something is the matter at the time. So we went along with that. We were thinking that this was diabetes that he had, so they gave him all the oral medications. And so then, like I said, one day, and it happened actually this time of the year in 2008.
Okay.
He was diagnosed in, let's say November. It was around Thanksgiving, I remember, because one of the things he loved to do was eat. And he just kept saying, man, my stomach, man, my stomach. And so next thing I know, I look in the closet and I see all this insured because I guess when he couldn't eat, and you have to eat, so you're trying to do something.
Exactly.
So the bottom line is after, let's say, like a month or so, and by this time he's in the later stages, but we did not know because we didn't know what pancreatic cancer was. And so we said, I remember one day we were getting dressed and we were going out and we were waiting on Bill. He was the last one to get ready. But he was the first one who went upstairs to get ready. So we were about to leave and DeSean said, man, where's Pops? I said, I don't know, let me go upstairs and check on him. So when I went upstairs and checked on him, I opened the door and he was sitting on the edge of the bed and he was like, man, look at me. He was like, look at all this weight I've lost. So he didn't have a shirt on at that point. He had a T-shirt on. And I looked at him. I'm like, man, what is wrong? And at that time, we were in Philadelphia.
Okay.
DeSean played for the Eagles at that point. And we were in Philadelphia. I said, boy, you better go to the doctor. And he said, man, I'm going to the doctor. But we were new to Philadelphia, didn't really know any doctors in Philadelphia. We're from California. So he said, I'm going back home, and I'm going to the doctor. And I said, well, you need to hurry up and go back home. And he went home. I stayed because at that particular time, it was playoff time, and the Eagles were in playoff games and all of that, so I stayed with DeSean. But meanwhile, back in Cali, he went to the doctor, and as soon as he got to the doctor, the way that he presented himself, and, I guess they took one look at him, because at that point his skin had gotten darker, the sudden weight loss, he had the jaundice going on, and he was dehydrated. So these are some of the symptoms. I'm talking about this because these are some of the symptoms to look out for. And at that time, again, we didn't know because we're thinking, well, he's diabetic, and, everything that we're looking at kind of mirrored the symptoms of being a diabetic.
Okay.
So once we got that diagnosis that he did have cancer, pancreatic cancer, then it was on and popping after that.
Now, let me ask you.
We can talk a little bit more about that.
Okay, is there a certain age that a person should start getting checked for this? And I know men, as me being a man, we have a hard problem, going to the doctor. We don't. That's the last place we want to be. I mean, I'm quite sure anybody, but men are mostly. That's one of our things. We hate going to doctors. So is there a certain age that men should start getting, or a person in general should start getting checked? Because like I said, that, like you said, there's no cure for this. Right. So do you think...
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Miss Jack. Go ahead.
I'll just say this. It just seems that, the more we live with this, the younger that it seems people are cropping up with it. Before, they kind of used to say that when you get in your later, let's say like 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s, that that's generally when it crops up. But here lately, I just learned of somebody who was in like 28.
Wow.
It's not common, but it can happen. I know people in their 30s who have it. So there's really... And then they just told me here lately, I don't know the details or anything, but somebody who was really young, when I say young, like teens, like getting ready to go into their adult years, was diagnosed with it. So it just seems like it can kind of, you never really hear of like younger people, really young, getting it. But I have heard cases like people in their 20s, let's say 20 and up, 20, 30, 40, 50, somewhere in those years, 60s and 70s are kind of the cases that, we're aware of. So can it happen to somebody young? I want to say no, but then who knows? You never know.
Exactly.
Who it's going to affect. So,
now, let me ask you another question. Like, high blood pressure run high in African American community. Is this something that runs higher in our community than any other communities?
Yes, you know what? Yes, it is. Unfortunately, let me pull up some stats on this as we talk right now. And this is according to a study that was done at the Johns Hopkins University. And it's talking about African American population and how it affects us so far as pancreatic cancer. is concerned. And I'm reading, and I quote, the incidence of pancreatic cancer is anywhere between 50 and 90% higher in African Americans than in any other racial group in the United States. Now, they have reasons for that being, well, first of all, we don't know exactly what causes it, but they're saying some of the risk factors are cigarette smoking, and the body mass index. I'm not a doctor, so I'm not real sure how that plays into it, but then they say the risk of pancreatic cancer increases with body mass, regardless of race group. And then they're also saying that our diets, of course, because we have a diet that is elevated, high in fat and calories. So they're telling us if you can stay away from, like, eating processed meats high in nitrates. And it says such as bacon, and boy, do we love bacon. And it even says bologna. Also increases the risk.
Okay.
And what else is so diet and cigarette smoking are some of the obvious things. And they have the nerve to talk about income. They say people of low income is associated with increased risk of cancer for several reasons. And then they say that people with lower incomes tend to smoke more.
Okay.
And that smoking doubles the risk of cancer. And then it also says that people with lower income are usually less likely to receive proper nutrition and health care. Isn't that sad?
Yes, it is.
So, and then it also mentions diabetes, and of course we suffer from that as well. My father's side of the family, my father had 7 siblings, and every one of his brothers and sisters, they're all deceased, and every one of them died from diabetes complications.
Okay.
So that's what I said, because when it was all over and done with, and I watched Bill go through, his journey, I turned around and asked the doctor, I said, and I don't want to alarm anyone who has who has diabetes, but I just want people to be aware and know your body. We know our body better than anybody. When we go to these doctors and we tell the doctor, man, my leg hurts, or whatever the problem is,
Exactly.
You know better than they do. I mean, they're just playing the guessing game.
Exactly.
And they're trained. I'm not trying to discredit like a healthcare professional at all, or a doctor in this case. But I'm just saying, a lot of times when you know that something is wrong and your doctor's not getting to the bottom of it, just don't stop. Keep pushing. Keep pushing. And that's kind of hard to do because, again, a lot of us don't have health care. And if you don't have health care, but now our president made it a lot easier for us to get health care. So if you're that sick, I don't care if you don't have any health care at all, you can go to the hospital. They cannot turn you away. If you go to I would just keep going. I would just keep going and call me if you can't get to the bottom of it. Somebody get in touch with me some kind of way. And I'll do my best to try to peel through the layers, because there are a lot of layers once you find out that it is pancreatic cancer that you do have, because that's a special treatment and a special, doctor that you have to seek out. You can start out with your regular doctor, but he in turn is going to send you to a specialist that is familiar with and, knows science, knows the cure, not the cure because there is no cure, but the symptoms.
Okay, Ms. Jackson, we have a call on the line that would like to ask you a question. Do you mind taking calls?
Oh, not at all.
Okay, let's go to line 1. John, you have a question for Miss Gail Jackson about this terrible disease.
Yeah, Miss Gail Jackson, thank you for educating the public about what's up with this and this disease and blood pressure and all that, and diabetes, because that's very, very worse, almost worse than any kind of disease. That high blood pressure and that diabetes.
Yes, sir.
Miss Gail Johnson, now...
That's Gail Jackson.
Miss Gail Jackson, pardon me, Miss Jackson. I would like you to break it down and let the people know that something like 67, almost 70% of the disease come from their diet, and what the diet that they constantly eating all the time and so forth.
Right.
And I wish you would educate them how to eat and so forth, because that's very, very important. And
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. You know yourself that these foods that make it to the grocery store, I'm learning more and more about it myself every day. And that's what I wanted to, by the time we finish this call, because they do not know the exact cause of diabetes or the exact cause of pancreatic cancer. One of the things that we do know, sir, and I'm going to agree with you, is our diet. And they say here, when you start, reading through the research that's out here available for you on how to treat pancreatic cancer once you get it, one of the most important factors that they refer to is your diet. So all these fried foods that we eat, all these processed foods that we eat, all these, they put all these preservatives, all these additives. There's no way in the world that could be good for anybody. So what they stress for us to do is eat more fruits, to eat more vegetables. The pure and the foods and the vegetables that we eat outside of meat, because a lot of these meats, you have to cook and prepare before you eat them. But it needs to be fresh. You probably just need to start. Just, if you have to make your own breads, which they tell us to kind of stay away from anyhow. I'm finding out more and more about wheat, wheat flour, and what that does to people, and how a lot of us have reactions in our body that trigger other situations to occur in our body. So that's one of the most important things that you will ever do, is what you eat and what you put in your body. So if we can just make sure, or do our best.
It's funny you said you just found out about wheat, because I just found out about yellow cheese the other day. That's not good for you. And the guy was like, "Have you ever seen a give out yellow? A cow give out yellow milk?"
Right. Never. Never.
And I tell you one thing, I have cut away from my diet. What I used to be crazy. I used to be a fast food junkie. I done left that alone.
Oh no!
Yeah, I know.
So
I left that alone, Mrs. Jackson. I'm gonna make you proud of me.
That is so bad. I had my babies, my grandkids. They're like 6 and 8. No McDonald's. No. See, and Mr. McDonald wouldn't be happy with me for saying that. But these fast foods.
They'll kill you slowly.
Yeah, that stuff is not good. And we're so in a hurry. We're so busy. We don't have time to, sit down and prepare the meals that our ancestors did. They would cook it right out grow it right out in the garden, and go out in the garden and bring it in the house. Even when they were, it even goes back to our slave days, when they were preparing out in the fields, doing all the master's work, and bring the food in and cook it, for us to eat.
Yeah, so, this is true.
Yeah,
yes.
Your diet and exercise complements that. Your exercise, you have to get up off that couch. We know those things work. So that's what I say. When I go out and talk to, the different groups that sometimes I find myself in front of, because there's no cure. But we know you have to rest. Rest is so important. I'm understanding how that, when we go to sleep at night, we just think we're going to sleep at night, but we have no clue, what's going on inside of our body, how that restores us, how that refreshes us, how that affects your thinking, how that affects your mind, how that affects, what you do in your day. So all that stuff is critical for us to really, really pay attention to, because we're just leaving out of here way too soon. We're leaving, and some of these things, again, I'm no doctor and I'm certainly no expert, but I think some of these things has a demand, they can play a part.
Yes.
And we never know what day we're checking out of here. But I really believe that sometimes that we hasten our own demise, we hasten our own, our own death in certain cases. And I'm just going to speak for myself.
No, I agree with you, Mr. Josh, because when they say that people die from in their 20s and 30s, they be like natural cause. I be like, what is natural about that?
It's not.
Yeah, there ain't nothing natural about dying in your 20s and 30s.
No, that's not. And some of this we can prevent. I think some of it we can,
Exactly.
Some of this stuff we can prevent. And I'll just speak to my father. He was an extremely young man. He had diabetes. And they told him, okay, you have to eat a certain way. You have to exercise. He didn't do that. My father was depressed. And a lot of that factors into how you deal with your recovery too. You know, you have to block out all that negativity. Like most of the time when we're diagnosed with that cancer, that big C word, you automatically think, oh my God, I'm going to die. You know, somewhere in the back of your mind, you have that thinking. So, you know, if you constantly, I'm a big proponent of, you know, your words are powerful, and what you say, you can't continue to say things and then the universe not find a way to make it, you know, come true. So that's law of order. You know, what you spend a lot of time at. I mean, I just believe that your words, I mean, the whole world was, God created the world based on what he said. So if you're constantly saying, man, I don't feel good, I don't feel good, I don't feel good, well, you're not going to feel good. You know
This is true, yeah.
If you keep that negative into your karma and into your space, then it kind of overpowers the situation. So one of the things that we did, and we ran into this like once he was diagnosed, because the medical world deals in facts and numbers, and you know they see this day after day after day after day. So they knew that when Bill came into that hospital and he had pancreatic cancer, that he was going to die. They knew that. Well, we didn't. You know, we're people of faith. We're people of hope. And they just started talking about it. It didn't seem like they wanted to talk about the cure. They wanted to talk about, well, let's make this, there was a word they started throwing around, the quality of life. You know, your quality of care. I think that's what they said. And me not really understanding until I went through that whole process what that meant. So they were preparing him to die already, you know, and they were preparing him to receive more like chemo. He was so sick at that point that he couldn't even, his body couldn't even accept the chemo, nor did he want it. But I'm saying that, you know, instead of like, let's think of some holistic type approaches to treating this. I mean, you have to daggone near go out of the country to find people. So sometimes you really kind of have to take things into your own hands. You know, I'm not saying defy what the doctor tells you to do, because you have to pay attention to those things. You know, but I think that with the wisdom that God gives us, I mean, if we can kind of make both of them work together, that you'll have a better chance of, you know, getting through it and maybe living a little longer with it, because there are a few cases of, I wanted to mention this, I don't know that I did, but pancreatic cancer, 95% of the people who get it aren't here to talk about it. Okay? And then the remaining 5%, their life expectancy is anywhere from 1 to 5 years. So there are a few cases. I know one particular lady right now,
Miss Jackson,
that it's beyond 5 years, and she's still hanging around, and she seems like she's doing pretty good. So
yeah, Miss Jackson, I appreciate you calling in. You always have an open invitation to come back and talk about it again. Once again, this is Mrs. Gail Jackson, president of DeSean Jackson Foundation. They giving me the signal to wrap it up, Miss Jackson, but you have gave us a whole lot of information today, and we really appreciate that. And feel free to come back anytime to give us more information about this.
Okay, can I just let you know, for anybody who wants to, we try to keep our website updated as much as possible, but DeSean's Foundation website is www.DeSeanJacksonFoundation.org. So it's his name spelled out, foundation.org. And on there, we do have information regarding what it is and how to treat it, signs and symptoms. And I hate to throw this in here, but the only way we're going to make a difference in this race and in this cause is we have to raise money for research.
Exactly.
So that's one of the things that we're trying to do.
Thank you, listeners from Detroit to Central Texas, for joining us here live on Detroit Sports Jersey with your host Will Sims and co-host Longhorn every Saturday at 3 p.m. Eastern, right here on WCHB 1200 AM and 99.9 FM. Visit us at DetroitSportsJersey.com. Straight sports talk. No professionals here. Have a great weekend.